Welcome, everybody. I'm Cindy Myers. And if you'd like more information about the work that I do and check out my services, you can go to my website, www.yourenergyhealer.com. With that, we're going to get going and discussing how stress impacts our energy system. Before we get going, if you're having a medical emergency, please call your doctor or 911. But what I can do for you is provide energy support and help support your natural healing abilities, help reduce some of that stress and anxiety that you're experiencing in a medical emergency for you, a loved one, a pet. It really can help just keep things flowing and keep you out of a stressed out state, as we're going to be talking about just shortly, which will assist and support what your doctors are doing for you. Okay, so let's talk a bit about stress and the fear brain. So, stress, real stress and fear. I mean, there's so many definitions of stress, right? I mean, we've all experienced it at various times. There's stress from work, there's stress from relationships, there's stress from money issues, tax time. We just came through that period. In unit, stress of, it's the pandemic, stress of the world events, stress of driving to the freeway, stress of going to the vet, yes, or to a dentist, whatever it might be. There's each one of these definitions slightly different, but it still reacts and works the same way. It might just land in a different place in your body, but it is still works on the same basis. Because anytime we're talking about fear, we're talking about the fight or flight response system, or what I call the lizard brain. So what happens when we go into that fight or flight response system is that everything shuts down or turns down to minimal, other than the most important systems in our body that is about surviving. We either need to run, we need to fight, we need to freeze. We need to do one of those few things. And there might be a couple other things that we can do in a survival mode, but really it doesn't have a whole lot of options. And it's intentional to do that because we don't want to have to go into our cognitive brain and start thinking every step of the way of what we need to do. So if you're going in an intersection and somebody's running a red light, you don't want to have to think about it. You just want to slam on the brakes. So it becomes very reactionary. It means react quickly and do this. And so it takes over very quickly. It's reactionary. Um, the the downside of that is that most of our existence uh, isn't a fight or flight response. It isn't truly requiring. We aren't truly in danger of something killing us or hurting us. But the response is acting just like we are in that state of immediate survival mode. And so our cognitive brain and what we're thinking, we're making really good decisions, that we are using our cognitive brain, but in reality, we're really using their lizard brain, which means we got three choices. We're going to run, we're going to fight, we're going to freeze. So when you think about, if you can look back a little bit on what you've made decisions on today, just take today, for example, you might start seeing, I'm going, maybe that was lizard brain that made that decision on X, Y, or Z. You can take lots of, grocery shopping. If you use food to soothe yourself, what did you pick? That was lizard brain making those choices. If you are, um, I don't know, there's other examples. Oh, if you're having an altercation or, somebody upsets you, how do you react to it? Do you back away? Do you freeze? Do you run away? Do you go, nah, I don't want to talk about it right now? Or do you immediately go into fight mode and want to have a verbal altercation with them? That will tell you a lot of times what that habit is. What do you tend to do in certain situations? You can start seeing the pattern. And when you act in a certain way, then that means that you've just gone into the lizard brain mode. And then we're not in our cognitive thinking where we're making really good decisions. Okay. Just few decisions that's being made in that reactionary mindset, and it's not usually very wise. They're not the wisest choice. And the perception of how it sees things is very limited because it's being seen as danger. This is something to be feared. And so now it's creating these habits and patterns because we're in this limited view and it can't see, well, maybe if we looked at it this different way, we can come about this problem with, again, now thinking with our cognitive brain with a whole lot of different solutions, or with our intuition. We can't really hear our intuition necessarily very well when we're in the fear brain. So sometimes we just react not in the wisest choices available. So, and then what happens too is that these responses are stored in our power systems. Okay, so and let's go into that a little bit. So here's a little example, a little diagram of the chakra system. And so if we look at, we have the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown chakras. And really the first three are quite critical in the fight or flight response system. And if we're an empath, we'll get into, most of us are rather empathic folks that come onto my webinars. And so the third chakra, the solar plexus, is really important for us to be aware of because we tend to carry a lot of the distortions or negative emotions, the stress response systems in that third chakra. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But let's go start from the root. And the root is the red down there. and this is, we can kind of think of it as the earth element. I mean, this is where we want to ground ourselves, right? If we want to be nice and solid, we want to always take and ground ourselves deep into Mother Earth. If there's a distortion in that root chakra, we may not be fully grounded. And so not being fully grounded can make us just feel on edge a lot, where you just kind of flighty. You just don't feel solid in where you're at. Some of that, you may not feel safe. You might have a quick startle reaction. Our sense of security, our sense of belonging, our interpersonal relationships, our tribe, there might be distortions in that. It can be especially true if our early days of life, our childhood had unhealthy rearing, that root chakra can have some serious distortions in it and a lack of grounding. And so that would be where we would want to do some real deep cleansing in those areas. So when I do my clearings, we'll do some demos later after the end of the webinar, the content part. I clear certain emotions. I tap into you and I can clear various emotions that I pick up that might be related to some physical, where they land in our physical body. But they also are important. I'm finding that we also release it out of our chakra system, our power system. Just think of these are like our the hub. If we get electricity into our house, it just doesn't magically show up in our house. There are hubs throughout the community that hold a huge amount of where the power comes into, and then it's redistributed out to the community. So these various hubs are very similar in our body, or similar to that. So the root chakra sends out this energy to the rest of our body. And it also will attract certain emotions more than others that give us our sense of either security, or again, if we get a trapped emotion and stress in that region, certain stress that we experience, especially around interpersonal relationships, we're going to definitely want to go into the root chakra and work on cleansing that and rebuilding and that's where the healing, that's where the true healing begins in our both mind, body, and spirit. So in the body system, it's as important as in our emotional system, because again, those patterns have been created. So for us to really change that whole mindset, get out of this little narrow vision, that we want to get into the root chakra, clear some of those trapped emotions and help you see different patterns and rebuild, reheal, reparent those patterns that were created quite often at an earlier stage in our life. Um, so uh, let's go up to the sacral. That's the next one that's in our pelvis region. And in the sacral, it's the orange dot there. Um, it's kind of going with the flow. We want to go with the flow. It really helps take that root chakra energy and starts flowing it to the rest of our system. And that's where our sexual energy is, our creativity, our co-creation with source, where that's where inspiration comes from. Um, and what trapped emotions and emotions like to reside in that area are guilt, over responsibility, uh, shame that likes to land there. Those are kind of the main emotions: guilt, shame. Um, and for those of us that are in the caregiving modes where we're always giving to others, over responsibility goes right into that second chakra. And so, what we want to do is turn that around and heal. And we want to turn into the playfulness, the creativity. When you get into that creative spirit, you just kind of, time disappears, and it's a playful energy. It's a sweet energy. So when we heal it, that's the energy you want to replace that distorted energy with, those trapped emotions that create the negative energy that's in there, that's stuck energy. So now let's go up to the solar plexus. The solar plexus is a fire element, and um, it also, and again, this is the one for us empaths, is really important to understand because we get a lot of distorted energy in this third solar plexus energy because we tend to take on other people's emotions, and this is where digestion occurs. And in the fight or flight response system, guess what? The digestive system is not seen as a mandatory system that needs to be operating at full force. So it turns down to minimal. It's like, think of a burner turning it down to simmer. We're going to provide the least amount of energy into that system because everything's going into the run, fight, or freeze system, especially the run and the flight. So what happens then is we don't digest our food very well. So we get a lot of stomach issues, a lot of digestive issues. That's why people that are always stressed, they get ulcers. Their digestive system is turned down to minimal, so they're not digesting the actual physical food that we're putting into our system. But it also doesn't digest our emotions very well. And because we're picking up other people's emotions all the time, we aren't fully able to digest others' emotions as well. So we have a lot of distortions and undigested, not only food, physical food, where we can't assimilate the nutrients that are coming in fully, where it's just not operating at its full function. And we're not able to also eliminate and break down our emotions, because emotions are just chemicals that our body creates given an experience. And sometimes that experience isn't even ours, but we're absorbing it into our body. But we have to then break it down just like we would if it was our own. And if we can't keep up with it, that creates a distortion in that chakra. And so again, for us empaths, that third chakra often gets a lot of distorted energy. It needs healing. It's got a lot of clutter and junk that's built up in there. So what we want to do then is work on releasing the confusion and emotions of others. So what I would be releasing then when I work with folks is really working on cleansing that third chakra. Okay, so let's go up now to the heart. Heart chakra is the air element, and it fuels our breath and circulation system. And this is where it then radiates out to the rest of our body. Okay, so this is why I tune this quite often. I start in the heart chakra. It's kind of like the greatest place to tune the rest of our energy to, because it just radiates to the rest of our circulation system. It carries all the energy out, and it can tune the rest of our body. So if there's a distortion below us, it can help raise and modulate the energy, our frequency, our power systems. It can help us get that regulated from below. And then it's kind of a nice bridge between our higher frequency, the third eye and the crown chakra, as well as the towards ground. Okay. So the heart is so important. And of course, it's where we carry our kindness and gratitude, generosity, and compassion and love. And for those that get distorted in that heart region, it's quite often related to grief. We carry a lot of grief. That's where we carry grief, is in the heart. So that's kind of obvious. Let's go on up to the throat. So the throat too is really interesting chakra, and I'm picking up more these days on the importance of that, because it's also kind of a bridge between our third eye. Excuse me, I have hair in my mouth. The third eye and ground. Well, all the lower chakras, especially the root and the second chakra. Well, and the third, but it's our ability to communicate, right? And so if there's a distortion where you think about where maybe in that fight or flight response system, we freeze and we don't say anything. We bite our tongue, we hold it in, we don't want to hurt other people's feelings, so we don't say what we're really feeling. It's that stuck energy when we can't speak our true voice, our true vision of ourselves. Perhaps it's where we sometimes carry our personas because we don't want others to see that true self. So we hold it in. We don't speak what is our true sense of self. And that's where that distortion is. But when we heal that, that's where the power of our voice is. And it's also where we translate from the third eye. Those of you that attend my healing circles, I'll often tell you that we can get downloads from source coming in, or our spirit guides, our intuition coming in, and it doesn't make sense. We see something, we feel something, but we just don't have the words for it. It's not in our throat, it's not in our communication system. We haven't been able to translate it yet to make sense of it. So that throat chakra is where we start translating. It's a connection between that part of our brain that's taking that information and making sense of what we're receiving from our spirit guides and our higher self, and then being able to verbalize it, and then having the courage to say it. So all of that is related. So clearing that any of that insecurity of being able to speak our true voice. We want to clear that out so that now we can more readily translate things, because sometimes we get afraid of what we might hear. And it makes us feel vulnerable to put ourselves, our true authentic selves, out there. So healing that, becoming more confident and secure, that heals that throat chakra. Okay. Let's see. And let's go up to the third eye. That's the purple color. And that's our power of perception and knowing our higher self. And it carries it raises the limits of possibility. You know, we kind of limit ourselves. We don't think, oh, we can't. That could never happen, right? Like I remember thinking that myself when I first opened up to this intuition, my own intuition, and I thought, I saw somebody doing some healing work, and I thought, oh, that would be cool, but I could never in a million years believe I could ever do that myself. But I thought it would be cool if I could. Little did I know that, boom, here I am 20, 30 years later, I'm doing that work. But back then, I had this limited mindset that, oh, that could never happen to me. I had to raise that limited thinking. So we always have this limited, we kind of have a ceiling, and we just don't see that we can go up higher. Well, raising that limitations, that's what we want to do in the healing of the third eye, is open up to the possibilities. because what's out there is really amazing if we just kind of park park our limited, or what others think we should be able to do, what we think we should be able to do, and then just be curious of going, well, what if? What could, wouldn't it be cool? That's my phrase, is wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if I could talk to animals? And then it happened. Wouldn't it be cool if I could do this energy work and help people with different physical and emotional issues? Here I am doing that work. So it's replacing that limited thinking, opening up to the possibilities. That's coming in through your third eye. And of course, now the crown is coming straight from source. This is the possibilities. And it coming in straight into, it's like a funnel, kind of picture a funnel coming in from source. The infinite wisdom and space of source coming in and into our crown and down into all the rest of our chakras. It comes down from that crown. So think of that, and it's the infinite love, infinite support that we can receive, and it's the infinite healing powers too that can come in. Where where we get stuck is that limited thinking that we place on ourselves. We don't, well, that could never get healed that way, and then it won't. But when we raise that possibility, it's like, well, heck, that worked. Sometimes it actually comes in and we can heal things that just in a nanosecond. And other times it takes time, but there's always that possibility. When I'm working with folks, I don't like to put time on things because I never know. It can, like I said, it can happen like that. And other times, depending on where we're at, where you're at, it can just take time. I never know. But I've seen things that I think, oh, that's going to take weeks, months, and maybe a year or 2 years to heal, maybe never get healed. And the next thing I know, the person says, oh, I feel great. Okay. Or the pet is perfect again. So you never know. All right. So, how do we help ourselves, especially with these blocks and these? And again, those first three chakras are really critical in clearing, and it's important. I would say those are really important for healing, but all of them are. We can get distortions in any of them, but I'm just finding that those first three is, it's where the most unconscious of our habits and behavior is, it resides, is in those first three. So to become more conscious, that's where we want to really focus on those first three chakras. But we wanted to be able to take care of all of our whole system. So how do we do that? Well, and in dealing, especially in stressful times, how do we take care of ourselves a little bit better? Yeah, you can call me and I can clear you, and I can do it every day if you wanted to, but it can challenge your budget. So I like to teach you how to do a few things for yourself. And one of the easiest things to do, of course, is just breathing fully, taking time to do the breathing. And there's lots of apps that help you do that. So check those out. I do the breathing in fours quite often myself. But you just want to take slow, full, deep breaths. I like to add in a emotion like gratitude, um, or peace and calm, depending on what my state is, uh, mental state is. They're very high frequency emotions, and we want to do that regular. Add that into our breath work. Slow the breathing down. Spend at least 2 minutes doing that and adding in your gratitude emotions, because that is going to help turn down that fight or flight response system and turn on the calming system, the parasympathetic response system. We want that one going. And the more you tend to that parasympathetic response system, um, the the quicker we can get out of lizard brain thinking. We can problem solve more fully. We can again access our cognitive brain, come up with better solutions. We can hear things differently. We can see things. We can perceive things. We can see things from a different perception if we can get into that calming system. And then again, we want to ground ourselves. That root chakra, I would say for a lot of us these days, right now, it's just really rattled. We can't help it. The world is crazy. So we want to really focus and go deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth and really kind of picture a nice big cord going. out of our root chakra, out of our tailbone, going deep, deep, deep into the center of the earth and really grounding us solid down in there. And I just tell myself, release fear. I don't know what quite. Sometimes I don't know what emotion is upsetting me, and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say, I'm just release fear, just in general, just release my fear, and put it down. If I know what other thing I'm thinking of, if I'm worried about something, I'll say release worry, release panic. If having an anxiety attack or something like that, release panic, release anxiety, and then picture rooting myself deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth as I'm breathing in and adding in those gratitudes. And I know how to clear my own trapped emotions, but it is helpful to, you don't have to know how to do that. You can just say release, and your higher self knows what you mean, and it will do that for you. I'm going to go into this. This when I talked about the higher emotions, here's what you can see, and it's a nice visual. So if you stay on the healing circle, I'm going to have you tune to love or above. I've been tuning you folks a lot of times to peace, and you can see it's actually higher than love. It's very powerful. It's a calming system to help you get quieter and be able to open up to your higher self a little bit easier. Sometimes it's too high though. So starting at love is a nice emotion. It can be just too far if you're really lost in a depression or anxiety. It might be too hard to get up to the peace and calm. So you can focus a little bit on love. Even courage, it's more neutral, and that might be sufficient to help calm us. And I just need the courage to do this, to sit in the healing circle. I just need the courage to do that. And you're adding that into your breath, courage. And that's a very neutral, but way more powerful than the shame. Remember, shame was way in the lower chakras. There's a distortion that likes to go into the lower chakras, which then skews our perception of different things. So we want to clear that. Okay? So love or above, green. And again, these are magnitude stronger, not just 10 times stronger or 100 times. They're to the power of stronger. All right, so if you would like some sessions with me, just need some quick clearings. The quick cleanse is a great one for you, your pets. You can mix and match with your family. It's a nice one just to kind of, you just can feel some distortions happening. You're stuck on something and you don't really want to don't need my help for the coaching of how to analyze what's going on in your life or to specific change your thought pattern. You just know you got some trapped emotions, you've been really stressed out, you don't feel great, you're just low ebb. Just come in and clear. This is a great package. Just 15 minutes, I can clear a ton of emotions out. I can cleanse all your chakras and rebalance you in 15 minutes, no problem. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to do that. It really doesn't. It's the coaching part. It's the changing the habit. That takes time. But just to clear trapped emotions, it takes 15 minutes. And then these are several of my books that I have out right now. And I'm working on two others at the moment. So two children's book, another toddler book, and another one for a little bit older kids. So hopefully there'll be more added to this page one of these days soon. Upcoming events. I wasn't going to do a healing circle this Saturday, but I was going to go out of town and that changed. So I am going to do one, and hopefully the emails go out. It'll be April 23rd. It's going to be using this link again, and it's at noon Pacific time. And then next Wednesday is also going to be another, just a healing circle, no webinar, just a healing circle. All right, so with that, I'm going to open it up if you all have any questions or would like to experience. I see, more people hopped on, great. If you would like, you have some trapped emotions you would like cleared, we can do that, or we can go straight into the healing circle, whatever you'd like to do tonight. Does anybody have, or if you have questions about the topic or a different topic? Got any questions whatsoever? What's the question of life? The answer is 42. And anybody that's read, what is that book? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. know where that comes from. 42. Any questions? No? Anybody need a clearing? Nobody usually wants one.
I'll go for it. This is Kath.
Okay, yeah.
and actually I have a question with regards to it. If you're like having emotional pain or just a pain in general, but it's not centered in your body. So let's go right now, it's my shoulder. Mm-hmm. Am I to think about like the chakra, that it would be connected more towards the throat chakra, or am I not even supposed to be thinking like that? Like
it's a little tricky and confusing. I admit that. It could be anywhere in your chakras where the distortion is, where the pain is. Where think of the meridians if you've done any of or acupuncture. It could where the pinching is, the distortion, where the block. Think of a dam, or
okay,
think of the river flowing, and that rock.
yeah, I got it
behind it. but where the flow goes, where that is pinched, could be anywhere in that meridian, and where the source is, where the actual source of the blockage is, could be anywhere in that meridian. But where you're feeling that actual physical discomfort could be up in your shoulder, but maybe it's down in your mid back somewhere, or it could be in your neck, or it could be, but because you said you weren't quite sure even what the emotions are, there's and statements in there. So I would say also there's a distortion in the throat chakra, but it's a system. So if there's a distortion here, guess what? It's a distortion in all of them.
Okay.
Everything else has to work harder.
Got it.
So, and I work with systems. It's a great question because that is the perfect example of how we are trained to think. Especially in this society, is we think, well, we think symptoms. This hurts, so it must be that. Now we're learning that, well, maybe the emotion, I have a trapped emotion that's stuck in that shoulder, and I can release that, yes. But we don't think of and statements that it's we're all a mobile, so we're all tied in from one string, and so if one thing is not working right, everything else is trying to keep it in equilibrium. We're constantly, everything in nature wants to be in equilibrium, but nothing can stay in that constant state, flat state. That's why everything cycles, because it's trying to stay in that equilibrium point. But because we're moving, it goes, oh, I got to go a little too high. Nope, I'm getting too high. Now I can bring it back down. Oh, I'm right there in that nice place, but I got momentum, so it's going down. Oh, I'm getting too low. Now I got to move back up. So it's always going up and down, up and down. When we have a distortion, then something else has to happen. It's going to go higher, faster, up and down, or it might go slower. Or
okay.
Or
that makes sense. Yeah.
Water's a great example of going in a pipe or going down, put a bunch of blocks, or you can dam it up and nothing's moving. Or if you have one rock in there, a big boulder, it's going to speed up around it and then it'll slow down. But it's always trying to move and figure out how to keep going. So if we have a total blockage, then yeah, we got a problem. But everything else is working extra hard too, because this one thing isn't working. So let me clear. So let's see if we can clear not only the discomfort in the shoulder, but the source of where it's at. Depression. Oh, it was in your neck. I felt a pop in the neck. Well, what shoulder was it?
The right.
That makes sense because it was the right side of my neck that popped. still a little bit there. And so it also congests, the trapped emotion could get into the actual shoulder and create little, again, where it's blocking, that emotion is blocking the energy flow. It can then, you're not getting good circulation to that spot. So it can create scarring, or just, it's just harder to heal because you're not getting natural energy flow to there. So we want to definitely keep breaking that up. So I'm feeling, hard to say. I have a shoulder thing myself, so I'm trying to move what is mine and what is yours. Oh, okay, that isn't mine. Okay. So, helplessness, clearing. Oh, there we go. And that was down the whole spine. Well, not the whole spine, upper, from neck down to shoulder blades. Released. So how's your shoulder right now? You have better neck mobility, at least to the right.
It's much better. Like, and the neck did hurt, but I wasn't even thinking that at first when I asked you about it, because it was more like right on the shoulder. But it's like it's all cleared. Like it feels happy.
We like happy.
Like if my neck is smiling, that's like, it's like happy.
That's what we want to have.
Thank you.
Also be related to the throat chakra, because when you first said something, it was like, I don't even know what emotion I could even describe to it. So that feels like stuck energy. Don't know how to even describe it. That was a
right. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
And now it's happy. We like joy. We like happy. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Mary.
So I have gas that feels trapped in my stomach or intestines, that muscle tested as 70% emotional. And I don't know if you've heard of neuro-emotional technique, have you?
A what?
NET, neuro-emotional technique. Well, it's clearing unconscious things. And the origin of this thing in my stomach was the sudden cessation of breastfeeding when I was 6 months old. That's what we traced back with muscle testing. And it was like a huge disaster to my psyche. And that only happened the other day, and I've been taking the remedies that go with it, homeopathic remedies, but I just got it back again. And so I thought, well, that's in those first 3 chakras, so I'll mention it and see what Cindy thinks.
Right. Well, the root chakra, okay, it got distorted because you didn't get the nurturing that you had learned to get for the first 6 months of, and then it's that sudden abruptness of being weaned. That's confusing, and we have stress, and it's going to be stuck in the different chakras, but mainly the root.
Is the root one where the pelvis is?
No, that's the one at the base of your spine. It's your tribe.
Oh.
You have a distortion in the tribe part. But it can be others now. So the root chakra, because you didn't get the nurturing, the proper, our well-being. When we're infants, we can't tend to ourselves. We're totally helpless. We're dependent, solely 100% dependent on the caregiver, the nurturer. And so if there's a distortion in that creates a pattern of stress. We still can have lots of emotions at that age, but they're not something we can verbalize because we didn't have speech back then. So, but a habit and that insecurity can get created right then and there because we don't know if we're going to get our food. Am I going to get food fed right? This is different. I don't know what's going on. We have this insecurity established at an early age, and it's pre-verbal. So it can create a lot of patterns, and you can sit in talking to a therapist a long time, but you don't have a physical You didn't have a verbal center yet to be able to describe it. You know about it, you were told about it, so you have that kind of a memory just based on what somebody told you, but you do have an emotional memory. You don't have a verbal memory of the experience, but you have emotional one. And that teaches you how, now that's lizard brain, that's, well, it say, oh, I know how I'm supposed to react because that's what I reacted to at 6 months. So it got created, the habit got created. So clearing some of the emotions, it's tricky because when we clear stuff, like you said, it upset you when you first got it done, right? Because it left you ungrounded.
Well, you mean when I had the remedy the other day? Well, the funny thing was that I was really good about. No, sorry.
You said originally you got some treatment and it left you really upset.
No.
Did I miss
just 2 days ago?
Okay.
We cleared the unconscious, but you have to take the remedies that you test for, right? And I was taking them very, very much yesterday, and I haven't taken them once today, just by being busy. And so I think that's why it came back, because I stopped clearing it by mistake.
It take time to rebuild and the tissues and the habits and the tissues themselves have from 6 months until now. It might take a while to rebuild those tissues. So that's why you need the remedy. So which is great that you're doing that. Because again, you want to rebuild mind, body, and spirit. So putting in the good after you clear some of the distortions out, you want to definitely put in the good. And then and remember to reground yourself. And now this is also affecting not only your root chakra, but your third chakra. And doing the work that I know you do, that you're so good at, you absorb a lot of people's stuff. So that's all about digestion and can affect digestion. And because of your experience at such a young age, you know what? We get a really good intuition going. I found that a lot of people that had very early trauma, and it can be different kinds. I'm not saying this is your trauma, but some that have had physical, sexual abuse early on, they might have a real cut. There's like a sheet. I see it as a sheet, but they have a really evolved and highly developed intuition and crown chakra, and there's a huge distortion, especially in the lower chakras. And they don't
make sense.
In a hard time connecting the two. So they have some very habits that are not helpful to them anymore. They're causing them a lot of life issues, but they have a highly developed. They're very intuitive folks. And that's because when you're very young, your intuition is keeping you survival. That's your survival. That is telling you how to exist. That's telling you how you need to be around whoever you are that's doing you not harm, that's doing harm.
Just sorry. I was just going to say, I knew someone once with a lot of early trauma like that, and if he drew himself with 2 antennae, because he picked up every little nuance.
Right. You have to read people all the time. Who's safe? How do I behave in order to stay safe? And so your intuition is just highly, they're not yours. The intuition is highly developed, but it's disconnect from, but they're not grounded. They're not well grounded, and they have a lot of digestive issues because they're just always in a stress state. So we want to then rebuild your root chakra and your third chakra in particular. So keep clearing those emotions. If that modality works for you, great. It's similar to what I'm doing. It just has a different name to it, but I use muscle test, but it's a different, because I'm at a distance. It's just, I'm asking yes and no questions in my head and identifying the emotion that needs to get released. So if you need some release, I don't know if you want that done, or did you?
No, I'd be interested to do some release. Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Can I just add a little bit, the background to this? So my mother told me that when I was breastfeeding, I would fall asleep on her breast in the evening feed, and she'd stay like that with me on her breast. So it was like highly intimate breastfeeding. And what triggered this was someone that I'm very close to who would be very connected to me and then suddenly not disconnect. And I realized through the NET that it was reenacting that early thing of this incredible closeness, and then where's it gone?
Right. You may find you have patterns of that happening because that is what got taught to you at that infancy age, and that's what I'm talking about. That's a perfect example of of a stressful event that it got created before you have a verbal center. But this is told you this is how it's supposed to be from here on out. And when you're in that stressed out state, or when lizard brain takes over, it says this is how it's supposed to be. And then we create, then our contract with others comes into play. So we attract people that are going to do that to us until we become conscious of it, which you know about, and you work with folks to help them become conscious of it. So once we become conscious of it, then we get to start learning to choose differently and override what that reactionary brain, what we start attracting to ourselves. And we can retrain ourselves and create the other habit that's healthier, that we can have that intimacy and not have it just, suddenly disappear.
Well, I think also it's like the withdrawal of contact isn't actually to do with me. It's to do with the person's thing, which when you can be inside that frame of mind, it doesn't bother you. But when the unconscious kicks in, it does bother you. Or what you're calling the lizard brain. When the lizard brain kicks in, then disasters happen, right?
Right. And to me, then that's what Carolyn Mays talks about, our sacred contracts. And when we get incarnated into this world and we're given some wounds that we need to work on, and we're given all the people, the injuries, whatever, to help create it, so that our life journey is to figure out how to heal that that we incarnated in with that wound. So you get a mother that helps you do that, even that she created that wonderful intimacy, and then the separation. And now we have to work on that for the until now. And now you have a awareness of it and you're healing it. So that's the beautiful part of it. But it's a sacred contract, and that makes it I don't know, because it's sacred. I don't look at it with the shame and the guilt and all the other stuff that comes up, that the lizard brain wants to come up with that perception of that experience. Oh, why did I do that again? It's like, oh, that's what needs healing. Wow, okay, now I know what patterns I want to change, because this is what I got put on this planet to figure out how to do better this life.
Yeah, and you reminded me that the first emotion, you go through all the emotions that come up, and the very first one was that I must have done something wrong for it to stop. Just what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. So let me clear. Captain. Resentment, I'm clearing that. Rejection. Unsupported, clearing that. Lack of control.
What was that last one? Lack of
control.
Right.
And helplessness, clearing that.
Well, they all fit the situation that upset me, yes.
Clear those and see if that doesn't help with the glassiness that you had, and then definitely keep putting in the good stuff. And I guarantee there's layers of it.
Yes, thank you. What a surprise.
But those emotions. So what I was saying, when you do your clearings, if you feel like you're going, okay, getting the chills, so pay attention here. When you start feeling that, experience that habit of feeling those emotions are kind of kicking in, that's lizard brain wanting you to see things that way. Do your breathing, and start saying, I release rejection. I release helplessness. I release all the emotions that I just said, resentment.
Yeah, I wrote them down.
And then replace that with I'm secure. I'm safe. I'm loved. And continue breathing with that. Or you can just go peace and calm or love. Replace it. Once you do the releases, you can do that yourself. Just say release it. You might have to do it a few times. Say the releasing as you're doing your breathing. And then it's important then to replace and retune, because you're now retuning yourself to the level above. So whatever emotion that's a higher frequency, replace that. And do definitely the breathing with the higher emotion for 2 minutes.
Like you're saying, like breathing in the higher emotions, you're saying?
Yeah, like, with every breath, I just breathe in peace and calm. Peace and calm. And it's slowing me down. And now those chemicals are now going through my body. It takes about 2 minutes for your master chef to release the peace and calm and start having that flowing throughout your body. So your heart chakra then can beat it out to the rest of your body, to especially the lower chakras. And I sometimes will picture it going down to the first two, wherever the root chakra, the third chakra, wherever I feel the distortion is most occurring.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mary. That was really a good example. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? They have like questions, comments? We're almost at the top of the hour. If you're ready, we can just go into the human circle unless somebody has some questions.
I'm afraid I have to go, but thank you very much for this today. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
I'm going to